This is Personal Injury Court.
Good day, everyone. This is Brown versus Horowitz. It's my understanding, Mr. and Mrs. Brown, that you all are suing Mr. Horowitz for failing to put in a floor at your jazz club. You went there and you stepped into your jazz club and fell into the basement, suffering terrible injuries. You're asking this court to award $100,000 for your medical bills, $50,000 for future medical bills, $200,000 for pain and suffering, for a total of $350,000. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And Mr. Horowitz, it's your position, based on what you filed with this court, that they should not have been there that night. Had they done what they were supposed to do, he would have never been injured, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Well, let's get into the legal sauce. Now, Mr. Brown, tell me what happened.
Your Honor, I had a dream. And my dream was to create and open my own jazz club. Because I'm a jazz musician. I want a place where my friends can come jam, and I could bring some of my famous friends to come in and perform. You're
touching me in my heart. I play a saxophone, and I was a jazz DJ when I was in college.
Oh, that's okay.
So you got your jazz club.
Yeah, so how I got to know Mr. Horowitz here is through my wife, who is in real estate.
How much work were you going to have to do on this club to get it ready?
Oh, the club needed a lot of work. It was an old building. She was able to help secure a good deal on.
Total renovation.
So, Mr. Horowitz, you remember when they hired you, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what did you understand you were supposed to do?
Well, sir, you know, I own Horowitz Construction, and we believe in the American dream.
How long y'all been in business?
20 years, sir.
So you've been doing this a while.
Yeah, generations. My grandfather was in construction during the Depression, so, you know, we got construction in our blood. We got sawdust in our veins, Your Honor.
Yes, that's what my dad used to say.
The Browns came to us, and, you know, they was talking about their dream, and the more he got passionate about it, the more I got passionate about it. Because
so you
I
believed in this project?
Dreams. I believe in the dreams.
Yes, sir. So, Mr. Brown, your dream turned somehow into a nightmare. How did this happen?
My wife wanted to see the building, and particularly the sunken floor. So we were out and about on a date night we try to have every now and then. We were not far from the building. And we arrived at the building. I had my key, walked in through the front door. I stepped in. Your Honor, I fell down 20 feet into the basement.
Was your wife next to you with this? Miss Brown,
she was behind me.
Did you
see
see
on a pile of rubble.
Yes, Your
As you
Honor.
can see on that picture, all the construction trash. I fell on top of all that.
So you fell through this hole?
The nails, the mud, everything.
Yes, Your Honor.
I thought I was dead.
It was awful. I tried to reach for him. I dropped my phone. I was panicking and screaming. Blood was everywhere.
I guess when you hit this debris, you realized you were pretty badly hurt.
Your Honor, I thought I was gone.
A passerby heard me screaming, so they called 911. They had to put a crane down in the basement to get my husband up.
That's all I could remember.
The doctor told us to call our pastor for his last rites. That's how awful it was.
Mr. Horowitz, you see this is pretty bad stuff, right?
Oh, yes, sir. In the 20 years that I've run that construction company, we've never had an incident, neither client nor worker has ever had an accident quite like
Your
that.
Honor,
now, why do you think that is, that you haven't had an incident in 20 years?
That's because I practice safety all the time, Your Honor. That's construction. It's always hazardous. So
well,
I put
Mr. and
safety
Mrs. Brown,
everything
you all
else.
knew that your place wasn't finished, right?
We knew it was supposed to be finished from what I've seen already, because I visited the site like 3 days earlier. And
clearly you thought the floor was there.
Right,
yes,
exactly.
So
exactly.
Why wouldn't that be reasonable for them to expect that the floor is there?
Well, Your Honor, at the very beginning of all this, we set out blueprints for the client to look at.
Okay.
So they can approve them. That's what we do, so we make sure we're all on the same page.
Now, you've submitted
right
something.
There.
Is this the blueprint you're talking about?
Yes, sir, it is.
Now, walk me through this. What are we looking at here?
This is the blueprints for the jazz club itself.
Okay.
You see the stage area, the dance area. Over here we got the dining and the bar and
This is a nice place.
Now that's where the sunken floor is supposed to go in.
And where it says front door.
Now this front door is right here by the sunken door because it's part of the lobby. It's part of the entranceway.
Mr. and Mrs. Brown, you all went in the front door?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Well, when you all got to the property, was the door locked?
It was locked, but we have a key.
We have a key.
Didn't that tell you
Now,
something?
Your Honor, 3 days ago.
No, sir.
I can't hear them when you talk in my ear.
No.
So when you got there, the door was locked.
Well, it's supposed to be locked, Your Honor. I mean, he's not there, so he locks it up when he leaves. But there was no sign, there was no yellow tape, there was nothing saying that we could not enter.
So if the door is locked and they have a key, isn't it reasonable that they go into a place that they own?
I don't understand why they would come in over here when 3 days beforehand he knew that there was a construction entrance right here in the back. And he could come in here. Matter of fact, that's where he came.
Mr. Horowitz, you may go back to your podium.
I did go through the back door. I glanced at everything. Everything appeared to be in order and everything.
But was there a floor when you went in 3 days before?
The area that covered where the sunken floor is was closed off. So there was no way for me to have known that.
So you didn't go through the front door that time, the few days before.
No, Your Honor.
Did you even go near the front door? Did you see anything near the
Yes,
front
Your
door?
Honor. I did see 3 days prior to the accident a sign that said, "Do not enter with the tape, do not cross."
So
It
now,
wasn't on there the day we went.
on the night in question, was there a sign there?
No, Your Honor.
Nothing at all. No tape, no sign, nothing.
Your Honor, if you saw that building the night we went there, you think it was open for business.
Yes.
There was no indication that it was a construction site. According to the schedule, this floor was supposed to have been done by week 7. When we arrived, it was week 9.
So there's no way there should
And
not
the
have been a
floor
floor.
still wasn't there.
But Mr. and Mrs. Brown, you can't just walk into a place at night, whether you own it or not, and just assume that it's all right.
Well, Your Honor, all due respect, we weren't informed about any delays or any issues.
And
I did inform you that there was going to be a delay.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I
No,
did.
Your Honor, we have a
Well,
contract.
I haven't seen a construction project that was on time.
Well, sir, he did not let us know.
He didn't let us know.
Your Honor, he didn't let us know if there was any delays or anything.
At all.
Now, Your Honor,
Yes, sir.
now, as you've already stated, it's hard to stay on a schedule in construction.
Yes, sir.
Mainly because a lot of times it's not our fault.
Right.
We get behind. Sometimes it's about the weather.
Change orders, things of that sort.
Things of that sort. Now, in this particular case, it was about supply and demand.
Well, you have to communicate that with us.
It was,
Yes.
Tell me about supply and demand.
I'll tell you about supply and demand, Your Honor.
Because it's not easy for contractors.
No, when we got to that part about the sunken floor, we'd
Okay.
already started the demo. Then we get a call from our supplier saying that the type of wood we need
And
was
see, that's not in
there.
your control.
Yeah, that's beyond our control. So
Now,
instead
did
of
you
just
let the
stopping-
Browns know that?
Yes, sir, I did.
And so how did you let them know?
I let them know through telephone, voicemail.
Did you ever get the voicemail?
Yes, Your Honor, after the fact.
So
After he was injured.
he did leave a voicemail. Y'all just didn't pick it up until later.
Right, as I
well, that's
had
not
explained
my fault,
earlier.
Your Honor.
So had you picked it up, you would have known that this floor was not finished.
Your Honor, there were multiple ways he could have got in contact with us, not just leaving a voicemail.
But he tried.
But there's other ways, Your Honor. He could have emailed, he could have texted, he could have done anything.
And once again, the
it
sign
just-
was removed from the front door.
If it's
It said,
something
"Do
that
not sign."
serious, you would reach out.
It just seems to me that if you had picked up the voicemail, you wouldn't have $100,000 of medical expenses. I see on the plasma there's a week schedule. Now, if you go according to this schedule, Mr. Horowitz, by week 9, the end of week 9, you're done, right?
That's the way it's supposed to work out.
Yes.
Yes,
So
sir.
at the time when the Browns walked through their front door, what week were we in?
We were in week 9, Your Honor.
So the floor should have been installed by week 7.
Yes, sir. Like I said, we had a problem getting the wood in on time.
And you
after we
tried to
started
let
the
them
demo.
know that.
I did try to let them know that. And in the meantime, what we did was, instead of stopping our work and sitting on our hands waiting for wood and delaying the entire schedule, we went ahead and worked on all the other things that we could have worked on.
You sound like a good contractor.
I try to work hard. I work hard for my money. I work hard for my family. I
Yes,
work
sir.
hard for these people who want to see their dreams come true. That's what I'm all about, Your
Well, you
Honor.
wouldn't be
I'm
in
about
business
making
20
the
years
dream.
if you didn't. So, Mr. Brown, you and Mrs. Brown step through, you fall into the hole, 911 is called. At some point, you realize the extent of your injuries. What are they?
Got fractured shoulder. My hip was replaced.
You're a relatively young man. How old are you?
I'm 44, Your Honor.
So you had a hip replacement at 44. Tell
Yes,
me
Your
about
Honor.
your shoulder.
My shoulder was fractured as well.
To understand your injuries, I want to talk to Dr. Karen Flood. We're going to bring her in and let her explain this to us. So, Sheriff, would you get Dr. Flood for us?
Yes, Your Honor.
Hello, Doctor.
Hello, Your Honor.
Would you state your name for the record?
My name is Dr. Karen Flood. I'm an orthopedic surgeon.
And, Doctor, what does an orthopedic surgeon do?
Well, we fix bones and joints. So anywhere from the shoulders out and from the hips down. There's also orthopedic spine surgeons.
Now, will you explain to me the nature and severity of Mr. Brown's injuries?
Yes, Your Honor. When Mr. Brown fell, he suffered multiple injuries, as you know. He broke his shoulder, he broke his wrist, and he also broke his right hip joint. And the right hip is what is the most concerning of his injuries. The reason for that is the hip is a ball and socket joint. And what he did was he knocked the ball right off the thigh bone. And when you do that, the blood supply to the femoral head, the ball part, can get disrupted, and then the bone actually dies.
So this was bad stuff.
This is a big deal.
How exactly do you repair an injury like that?
Well, in most cases, we actually replace the hip. I've got a video if you'd like to see it.
I would. Please take us through this.
So this is the patient getting ready for surgery. You see we've got them all positioned here on the table. They've got their feet in traction. Here's the hip joint up here. So he's done the work for me. He's knocked the hip joint off. And now I'm going to replace it by putting a brooch down inside the thigh bone that opens up a hole in the thigh unless we put the actual hip replacement down into the joint. So
now, do you pound that thing down into the thigh?
I do. We have a mallet that knocks it down in. And then we replace the hip socket first by reaming out that socket and then relocate the hip. But you have to dislocate the hip in order to replace it. You put it back in place, and then that allows you to get a little bit of motion back in your hip.
He's 44 years old. How common is it that you get a hip replacement?
Well, it's not as common, and the problem with that, of course, is this hip is eventually going to wear out. About another 20 years, he's probably going to need to get it replaced.
So around the time he's about to retire, he's going to have a hip replacement.
He's going to have another hip replacement. That one's harder because I have to take out more bone in order to do that. You take more. So every time you do it, it's a more complicated procedure.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
You may be released. So, Mr. Horowitz, you see that this has been very heavy for the Browns, right?
Yes, sir, I do.
And these folks, regardless of where you assign fault, he's going to be dealing with this for a while. Does your heart get touched on that?
Well, of course it does, Your Honor. I mean, when I found out what happened and I saw the incident report, I was horrified. In all honesty, I mean, if he hadn't walked in where he wasn't supposed to be, then none of this would have happened to him. I made it plainly clear to him that it was dangerous to be in there.
What happened to the sign that was on the door 3 days before? He took it off, Your Honor.
Well,
the not cross sign, why was that removed? That place was ready for business.
That place was not ready for business.
The front door was painted, Your Honor.
When I do construction, I'm the one.
Order in this court. Mr. Horowitz, I can see that you tried to warn the Browns. You locked the door, you tried to call them.
Yes, sir.
I can imagine this was shocking and disappointing to you.
I mean, I'd never had anything like this ever happen. I've never had a client just show up at the job site at night when nobody is there and just let themselves in.
It's our building.
And until this construction is done, and I say it's safe, you shouldn't even be going in there without any kind of escort,
it was supposed to be finished.
Order in this court. Folks, I think I've heard everything I need to hear. I'm ready to make my decision. In every personal injury case, the plaintiff has to prove three things. The plaintiff has to prove that the defendant did something wrong and that wrong caused your injuries. Clearly, you were injured from this terrible fall at your club. Here, you all reasonably thought that the floor was in because, according to the schedule, it should have been in. You all went in expecting to be excited, imagining all the dancing on the floor, and you fell down 20 feet into a basement with horrible injuries. Mr. Horowitz, when you left that night, you had no idea that this tragedy would happen because you put certain safeguards in place. You locked the door and you left them a voicemail saying, hey, not finished, don't go in the place, but they didn't pick it up. And because they didn't pick it up, you believe it's their fault. Well, here the law takes a global approach to the evidence. That is, I consider everything. You all have proven that there was something wrong. Clearly, you've proven you're injured and that the wrong caused your injuries. Mr. Horowitz, I find that you tried to warn the Browns. You not only locked the door, but you actually got on the phone and called them trying to leave a message to say, don't go into the place. Now, they didn't pick that message up, and they should have. However, I think you should have done more. You should have warned them. You should have put tape over this door, done whatever it took to avoid a man nearly falling to his death. And in that regard, I find you 100% responsible, and I'm going to award you all every penny of what you seek. $100,000 for past medicals, $50,000 for future medicals, and $200,000 for pain and suffering, for a total award of $350,000. That is my final verdict, and this matter is adjourned. Our attorneys across America just viewed this case for the first time. Let's hear what Andrew Finkelstein has to say.
I think the orthopedic surgeon did an outstanding job of explaining what happened to the plaintiff in this fall, as well as what had to be done to treat his injuries. An area of personal injury claims that can often be overlooked involves future medical needs, what type of treatment may be necessary in the future, and how much that will cost. All of this should be presented into evidence so a fair settlement or verdict can be reached.